Welcome into the Warchant.com report. I'm Jeff Cameron of ESPN Radio, and joining me, as I can see on my screen here, that's Gene Williams. He's the founder and administrator of Warchant.com. Corey Clark. What do you do, Corey? What do you do for Warchant?
I make dreams come true. So that's basically what I do.
Oh, man. So it is that you can read all the goodness and all of the stuff that Warchant produces right there at Warchant.com, including watching this here video. By the way, Florida State coming off the bye week. We'd like to think we're going to see a better version of this football team Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock on the ACC network. If you're trying to watch from home, that's how you would do it, presuming you live in a place that has the ACC network. And that game, again, 4 o'clock, as I said, ACC network. Noles didn't play last week. Thankfully, we all could kind of cleanse our palate. Want to remind you of a couple things here. First of all, Tom Wang and myself will have the pregame show on Warchant TV there on YouTube. We'll do that at 10 a.m., bright and early Saturday morning, so that you have counter-programming to College Game Day. You can ask questions, certainly follow along, and then stay tuned afterwards for the post-game show. Gene Williams and Tom Wang will be hosting, taking your calls as well. Hopefully this one's a little bit more fun to do than the last one when Louisville ran roughshod, and I would think it would be. If you look back at the record through 6 games, Florida State's 2-4. That's not good, but they got a chance to get a win here, guys. I do believe. Gene, do you want to start? It's a tough two games. You got your hope up with North Carolina, drag back down with Louisville. Crazy 2 games before the bye week, and now we got to project about what we're going to see and how we can fix this inconsistency.
Well, yeah, I think it's a good time for the bye week. I mean, I know we don't like it. Like you said, you got to cleanse the palate because that was a disgusting rancid meal we had in that last exposure to Louisville. But, I think it's a good time to correct a lot of things and to get healthy. I mean, getting Jordan Travis healthy is absolutely huge. So that extra week was perfect for him. Hopefully you get Terry back. That's big there. I think, if I'm a coach, first thing I'm going to do, an offensive coach, I'm going to put those wide receivers next to that jugs machine, 1,000 catches a day. That was the most horrific performance I may have ever seen by a wide receiver group at Florida State. That has to be fixed. And I like what Kenny Dillingham said early in the week. They did not install, he said, we didn't install any new plays. You know what? I've seen the offense is getting better under Jordan Travis. We're seeing them, when they're healthy, move and click. But you know what? It's still rough around the edges at times. They make too many mistakes, too many penalties. Let's do the things. They should do the things that they do well and do them more efficiently without all the mistakes. I think that's important. But I think the other side of the ball, look, you got some huge personnel deficiencies. That's not going to change with a bye week. But you can, hopefully the staff figures out what this team is. It's got major problems. But let's simplify things. Let's go ahead, work a lot on tackling, work a lot on staying in your gaps, the very fundamentals. It sounds simple, but they haven't done it all season. So let's figure out a way to do that, spend that extra time on that. So I think they're never going to be a good defense this year. That's got to be worked on in the offseason, but be somewhat close to competent, make a stop occasionally, 3 and out occasionally would be great. So some simple, it sounds all simple, but it's things that could really improve your team down the stretch because you have 4 of the 5 final games are winnable. So clean up just a couple little things, and you might win 3 out of those 4. It's possible, and that can make a huge difference to what happens in the offseason.
Well, Corey, Gene just alluded to it. I think most people's primary concerns through these first 6 games really do center around just how bad this defense has been. It's been brutal to watch, and it's hard to fathom how it's even possible to look that bad week to week. I guess, what would you say if we're looking at this, it can be accomplished moving forward with this defense as we try to correct these massive problems?
Oh, I don't know. Competency. I mean, that would be a step up. Just look competent and look coached. That game against Louisville, they didn't look like they had practiced. I'm sure they did. We know they did. But they looked like they had not practiced at all. You just look, like Gene said, there are deficiencies. We all know that. There are deficiencies at certain positions. They're just not skilled enough at certain positions. But they're supremely skilled at other positions. Not many, but they have some guys that are going to play in the league. My biggest problem with the way this defense has looked through my point being, there are other defenses that are ranked much higher in the country that have performed much better that don't have from top to bottom the talent that Florida State has. Florida State is not 90s talented, but they're talented enough to be the 39th best defense in the country or the 51st, not the 95th or whatever they are. And it's because they make it so easy for opposing offenses. Everything is just wide open. It's just pitch and catch. It's, just run around in because we crashed 2 guys down. That's an easy touchdown. Or the best receiver on the field, we're going to leave him running scot-free in the middle of a zone. I don't know what it was, but there's guys running free. There's too many busts. If you just can eliminate the huge busts and make them earn their way down the field, you have a chance against Pitt, because Pitt's not very good offensively. But if you give them free 70-yard touchdowns, that's how you lose to teams like Pitt, and that's how you give teams confidence. So I want to see them for the next 5 games, starting with this one. They're going to give up points. They're going to give up yards. Make them earn it. Just make them earn it. Don't give up wide open throws that middle school kids can make. Make them earn their points, and I think you can live with that. And that goes back to the practicing. That goes back to preparing. That goes back to putting people on the field that know what they're doing.
Well, let's stay there. I'm going to stay with you real quick, Corey, because I actually look at the personnel on that defense, and I don't know that there's a ton that they can do. Yes, they can be competent. Yes, they can make folks earn it. I'll tell you what's been glaring and difficult to stomach, and the reason it is, it's not just because of the points you're giving up and the games you're losing and the way that you're losing, but the realization that we have a long way to go to give this team a fighting chance to be anywhere close to a top 20 team, a top 10 team, certainly. And that's the fact that personnel-wise, they don't have very good players. They don't. There's not a lot of talent on that field. You look around in particular, and here's why I want to stay with you. They haven't had a good linebacking core in forever. Defensive ends have been garbage for a very long time. There hasn't been any consistency at those two positions. I guess I'll ask you this. Do we got to get to where not only are they lacking in personnel, but there's a core problem, I think, in recruiting, evaluating, developing. Now, this goes over multiple coaching staffs, so it makes it hard to talk about. But expound on that a little bit about what we've seen with 2 segments in particular being glaringly poor week to week, year to year.
Yeah, when you look at it, Janarius Robinson was a high 4-star recruit. Kane Doe was a 5-star recruit, one of the top defensive ends in the country. They obviously have not lived up to that billing. They've proven to be just average college football players at best. Look, to get back to where Florida State we all want them to be, back to competing for championships, you have to recruit at a much higher level. The development, yeah, sure, you can develop them, but you can only develop so much. You have to get elite talent at those 2 positions. Well, especially a defensive end. Linebacker, yeah, Telvin Smith and Vince Williams are the only 2 good linebackers it feels like they've had, and Nigel Bradham in a decade. Those are the 3. I'm sure there's some other guys you could sprinkle in, but those are the 3 that come immediately to mind, are those 3 guys. Other than that, they haven't been great at linebacker in a long time, but they've had defensive ends rolling through here, from Bjorn Werner, Brandon Jenkins, Mario Edwards, DeMarcus Walker, Brian Burns. This is abysmal what they have at the defensive end position. You've got to find guys that can impact games and make plays. So recruiting, I think, is number 1. Find those players. But also, Jeff, I agree with what you're saying. The players aren't good, but there's a lot of defenses that don't have players that are great. They don't look so unprepared. They don't make it so easy. Louisville did not make it easy on Florida State. Louisville does not have a great defense by any stretch of the imagination. But Florida State didn't have guys just running free in the middle of the field the whole game. That's what concerns me the most. You can coach up average players and get hold them to 280 yards in the first half instead of 410. That's my biggest concern is if you're poorly coached and you have average talent, you have no chance. If you're well coached and have average talent, you at least have a chance. Yeah, to be competitive against like a Louisville. You're not going to beat Clemson. You're not going to beat Notre Dame, but you can be competitive.
That's what we're hoping to get to. I also think it's further evidence of what a weird, unique season this is. Again, people get mad at me because I deflect a lot when in regards to this team and how unique this season is. There's no way anybody in the country thought that LSU would come into this season after winning a national championship. Yes, going through changes, but they've recruited exceptionally well. Their defense is worse than Florida State's. That's impossible. They've got great players everywhere, and they've got a coaching staff that's had success coaching defense. And yet every week we watch LSU give up 48, 55, 40. So it's a weird season coupled with the fact that they've got to get better. Gene, I want to switch to you for the offense because I'll tell you what, this lack of personnel and the problem with talent or lack of depth of talent isn't just with the defense. It's with the offense. And at wide receiver, if Tamorrion Terry's not playing, Florida State's wide receivers are below average, to put it kindly. And this is a state, Gene, let's get into recruiting. This is a state where wide receivers grow on trees. They're everywhere. There's no excuse not to at least have 3 or 4 or 5 good receivers in the state of Florida, and they don't.
Yeah, that might be a bigger mystery than even the linebacker defensive end. You're right. Anybody who follows recruiting, you follow the high school scene in the state of Florida and Georgia, they're everywhere. I mean, that's one thing the state of Florida is probably the skill position players, especially on offense. There are crazy athletes all over the place. And we keep talking about recruiting and going back to this, but man, go back and look at the classes that should be contributing right now, 2017 to 2019. I'm going to give the freshman receivers a break. They're true freshmen. But I mean, they had 8 guys signed during that period. 4 have left the program. 2 others they just haven't been good. Jordan Young and Warren Thompson have not been good. They had the pedigree. Everything was there. They have not so far. Maybe they will, give them some time. Maybe they'll pan out. What does that leave you with? Terry, who he's great, but he hasn't played most of the year. He hadn't been out there. That leaves you with Keyshawn Helton. He's playing with a brace on his leg right now. He's not the same guy. You can tell that. He's not as explosive. He's struggling right now. So when Terry's not out there, you're right, Jeff. You have a below average underachieving. This goes back to the end of the Jimbo Fisher era, obviously didn't recruit, and then horrible decision-making and evaluation by Willie Taggart and that stuff, going out to Seattle and giving up a coach to get a guy that leaves a year or so later. I mean, it's just horrific. But there you go, transfer market recruiting. You can build that up pretty quickly in this state. That's the positive, but it's not going to do you any good this season.
We got to talk about Florida State's opponent. We'll do it next. Pitt is a little lost at at safety, as they had one of their best players opt out. They've got injuries at quarterback. That's good news for Florida State. You hate it for the kid. We'll see. We'll talk about the Pitt Panthers when we come back on the Warchant.com report. Welcome back to the Warchant.com report. Quick reminder, pregame show, Warchant TV on YouTube, myself and Tom Lang. After the game, Gene Williams and Tom Lang break down what occurred against Pitt. The Panthers come in really struggling right now on offense, I'd say, with Kenny Pickett having gone down, having missed the last 2 games. And you look at the difference with him out, the backup in. Yellen is a guy that, I'll let Gene get into it, but he's been a significant downgrade at the quarterback position, completing less than 45% of his passes. That's always going to be a problem. The Pitt hasn't looked the same. They were never a dynamic offense to begin with, but it's especially true with this backup. So cross your fingers that Pickett will return at some point, not just this weekend. Gene, if you want to talk about quarterback play, fire away, buddy.
Next week, we hope the best for Pickett, and hopefully he's healthy and ready to roll next week. And to give you a little bit of perspective, I don't know if anybody follows. I know you follow the lines, Jeff, and you notice how it opened Pitt as a slight favorite. Now suddenly Florida State is a 2.5-point favorite. Right. I'm sure that has directly to do with the quarterback. And to give you a little perspective on that, quarterback rating, the Pickett is 136, very good quarterback rating. Yellen, who is likely to start this week, his backup quarterback rating of 85, not so good. As you alluded to, Jeff, he's only completing 44% of his passes in his 2 starts, 3 interceptions, 1 touchdown. And here's another thing, which is music to Florida State fans' ears. He's not very mobile. Now, he comes in with a good pedigree. He's an Arizona State transfer, was 4-star guy out of high school in California. So he's better, but at this point, being a redshirt freshman, he's still struggling a little bit. Now, he does have one pretty viable target, and that's Jordan Addison, who leads them by far, double the number of receptions of anybody else on the team, and he's a freshman. Now, this is a good opportunity defensively. I'm going to see how they're going to scheme this up. This is where I say you put shadow coverage with Asante Samuel on the one real target with a struggling quarterback. It's a perfect situation for Florida State. Now, we're talking about Florida State's defense, so, they're still going to get his yards. They're still going to get some points, but maybe they hold him under 40, just possibly.
Well, Corey, this is fun because if you look, and Gene just alluded to it, they can't run the ball, and Florida State can't stop anybody from running the ball. So you've got a team that averages less than 100 yards a game on the ground against a team that gives up close to 300 on the ground. So who wins out here with this battle of Titans on Saturday?
I feel like Florida State's defense will on the running game, will do what it takes to stop them. They're not going to average 8-9 yards a carry. And look, Pitt doesn't do it well. They don't have a Hawkins back there, or a De'Aaron King, or the Notre Dame offensive line. Now, they are the North Carolina running backs. Like, they have faced some really talented running games here recently. It's no excuse to give up what they've given up. But it's 275 in the last 3 games running the ball. You can't do that. That's despicable. But I do think that against this team, a team that does not run the ball well, that does not have a very good offensive line, they should hold their own. I mean, I'm not expecting them to hold them to 18 yards on 30 carries, but they're not going to give up 250. And because that Pitt would love nothing more, especially if it's the backup quarterback playing, to establish a running game, but they don't do that. Like, they just throw the ball. With Pickett, that's basically, they knew you could tell that Whipple going into the season knew we can't run the ball. We're not going to be able to run the ball. So in their very first game, they're slinging it around the lot because that's the only way they can win. So I don't think Pitt will even try to run the ball that much. And when they do, if you shut them down early, 2 yards here, 2 yards there, hey, maybe don't go crash Janarius and leave the whole backside wide open for a 70-yard run. Akeem Dent, you were on that play too. As long as you play sound and don't give them huge chunks right away, they might abandon the run altogether. But I do think that Florida State's defensive line, at least the interior, will play well in this game, play well enough that they're not going to just give up gaping holes and big chunks of yardage.
Well, I was actually about to bring up the fact that lost in all of the points scored by Louisville, let's put it that way, in the last game was the fact that the interior of the defensive line for Florida State, dare I say, actually played pretty well. Now, they lost contain on the edges, which is the same broken record every time we talk about this defense. So when things got clogged up in the middle, the back was able to bounce outside. There was nobody there to stop him. Everybody gets outside Florida State's defensive end's outside shoulder, and then it's an easy play from there. But the interior of the defensive line, Durden and Marvin got pushes. Coop played. They had pushes there. So I'd like to think if you can clean up contain there, you've got an opportunity to continue Pitt's woes on the ground. Now we flip it to the defensive side of the ball, and here's a part that interests me as well. This matchup is intriguing for a lot of reasons. Pitt does shut down the run. That's absolutely what they do. The number 11 ranked defense in the country. They do a real good job on this side of the ball. They're a brick wall against the run. Florida State wants to run the ball, has to run the ball, and has proven to be able to run the ball. So, Corey, we look at those rankings. They're number one in that category, giving up just 69 yards a game on the ground. FSU's improved drastically. Get a healthy Jordan Travis, we think. Your thoughts on who's going to win that matchup?
I think Jordan, I don't know that they've faced, in fact, I know they haven't faced a running attack quite like this one. I know Ian Book had some success, and they gave up 45 points or whatever they did to Notre Dame. Ian Book is a pretty mobile kid, and he had some success running the ball against them. Ian Book isn't Jordan Travis. Jordan Travis is a unique runner with a unique ability to make people miss. And I don't think Pitt – I think Pitt kind of had those rushing numbers against teams that weren't quite like this. Although Miami has a pretty dynamic quarterback runner too, but he could throw the ball against them. I think that Florida State wins this battle. Winning is relative. I don't expect Florida State to run for 240 yards against this team like they've been doing against every other team. But I do think that Jordan Travis is such a unique threat back there that Pitt can practice it all they want. They can rep it all they want. They haven't seen it in person. And you can't simulate that in practice. You can't simulate what he brings if he's healthy. So I like their rushing attack to open up the passing game. And I do think they're going to hit some passing plays. As bad as the receivers have been, and we talk about that, I do think they'll hit some passing plays. But overall, I think Florida State used this bye week, like Gene said. It wasn't to add any new plays. What they did the whole time, Kenny Dillingham said, was they worked on what they always work on, and they worked on it against every look imaginable. So they worked on power. They worked on counter against every look they could possibly see, every look that Pitt or anybody else could throw against them. So I expect the running game just to continue to get better and better as long as Travis is healthy. And I don't think Pitt has faced a running attack quite like this yet. So those numbers, if you hold Florida State to 140 yards rushing, you probably had a pretty good day defensively in this current iteration of Florida State's offense. Well, that would be double what Pitt normally gives up, So I think they could still play well, but I think overall, I think Florida State's offense will put up more yards against Pitt than most offenses for sure.
Gene, Corey referenced the fact that he thinks that Florida State will hit on some passes, but we all know that's all predicated on Jordan Travis's legs. And yet the irony here is that Pitt can't stop the pass. Everybody throws the ball on Pitt. How should Florida State proceed? I think we have an idea based on what we know Jordan Travis to be. He's not a drop back passer. Things have got to be second and manageable, third and manageable, so that you have the illusion to be able to run off a play action. Your thoughts about the passing game against Pitt?
Well, it all comes down to Terry again. I hate to say that, but man, if you have a healthy Terry and a healthy Jordan Travis, Kenny Dillingham has to be just frothing at the mouth right now because it's an exciting prospect. Paris Ford, their top defensive back. Some people, he's a preseason All-American. Some people had him tabbed to be a potential first-round draft pick. He opted out this week. So that's great news for Florida State's passing game. Now, they do have one really good cornerback in Marquise Williams, but here's the issue about Marquise Williams. He's 5'8". There's no way they're going to leave him on an island against Terry. The other starting cornerback, Pinnock, is giving up 26 yards per catch in his direction.
Wow.
So he has given up huge plays all over the place. So what are they going to do? Put him on Terry? And Pitt is not, if you watch their defensive scheme, they leave their guys on an island. They stack that box. They're going to stop the run at all costs. So, man, you got to take some shots downfield. So I think, yeah, obviously the run a little bit to set up the pass, but I don't know how much you really need to do that. If they're either going to have to double up Terry, which they haven't really done. That's not their motif. Or they're going to leave him out on it. If they do, then it ought to open up some other stuff. And if they don't, man, I'm just going to chuck it down to him all day long.
Yeah, you get one-on-one matchups there, and then you're going to have to go ahead and try to exploit that almost by definition. Right? Just throw in the general area if Terry's going to play.
Yeah.
So we'll all cross our fingers that he does. Well, what are realistic expectations for the remainder of the 2020 season? For Florida State, these are, besides the Clemson game, imminently winnable games, including this one on Saturday. We'll come back and talk about that in the Warchant.com report.
Are you the ultimate FSU fan? We're your ultimate Seminole sports source. Subscribe to Warchant TV, where we bring to life the award-winning website, Warchant.com. Here you will find added opinion and analysis from the #1 team on the Florida State beat, a staff that brings over 50 years combined experience right to your phone or mobile device. Unmatched digital storytelling, original recruiting content, access to the top prospects in the nation, unflinching post-game wrap-ups, and the daily podcast Wake Up Warchant. All free of charge every day right here on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and use the promo code WARCHANT30 for a risk-free 30-day trial of premium access to Warchant.com, home to the most active, passionate FSU community online, featuring exclusive insider access you won't find anywhere else. You're the ultimate Florida State fan? Connect to Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.
All right, welcome back to the Warchant.com report. By the way, guys, make sure you're subscribed to Warchant TV by clicking on the subscribe button on the bottom right of the video. Click on the bell to be notified of when videos and live shows are available. I'll remind you again that the pregame show with myself and Tom Lang on Warchant TV, the aforementioned Warchant TV on YouTube, takes place this Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And then after the game, you're going to want to return to Warchant TV on YouTube in order to hear Tom Lang and Gene Williams talk about the game that was just played. And hopefully they're celebrating a victory while they take your calls, maybe a frosty beverage or two in celebration of said win. Maybe. We'll see. We knew it was a rebuild for 2020. A lot of weird circumstances surrounding this year. They don't get a spring. We have a global pandemic, etc. 2-4 through 6 games. Not good, but not completely unexpected. I guess what I would ask you guys, panel, if you will, over the final 5 regular season games, what's the most important thing that has to happen for this coaching staff to build on heading into the next off season and obviously in recruiting?
I guess also, how about beat Pitt? I mean, I think it might be that we talked about it off the air, but I think it's the most winnable game on your schedule with their quarterback out, one of their top players in defense opting out. You get a home game, your bye week, you heal up. If you don't win this game, man, you're in big trouble. I mean, it's been an ugly season so far. It could get even uglier if you lose this game. But I mean, you want to have some. We talked about it, you want to have the momentum. You want to show improvement because it's a key offseason for Florida State. Whether you're talking about the transfer market, whether you're talking about recruiting, you need something to build on. So, I mean, I think from that perspective, that's what you got to look to. Build on this, show a little bit of improvement, beat the teams, beat the Pitts, beat the Dukes at the very least, and you got something to hang your hat on the offseason.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Well, I do agree with that. At the end of the day, it's got to come down to wins. Like, we all think that they're improved. Like, you can watch this team from where they were against Georgia Tech and now, even that Louisville debacle, and think that they're an improved team, and they might be, and they're improved over last year. We do, I think, like the direction that this program is heading. But if you don't have any tangible evidence, you can't just expect like a high school senior, a 17-year-old, just to go on feel. Like, it just feels like it's getting better. They want to see real results. So do their coaches, so do their parents. If you're trying to recruit kids, you have to sell hope. And hope can only go so far, but you have to sell hope and prove that there's a reason to be hopeful. And right now there hasn't been. And I think if you finish this season winning 3 out of 4 or 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5, If you can get to 5 or 6 wins and say, look, here's the evidence of how much we're growing. Imagine what your class can do with us. And even if you're talking to a transfer, and you better be talking to transfers. If you're talking to potential transfers, you say, look how much we've improved in 1 year, and we're just going to keep getting better. Believe in us because we're going places, and we're getting better. And you also get the guys on the roster to believe. That's a really important thing too. Wins matter. Wins have to matter. You can't at the end of the year go 3-9 and say, but trust us, we're getting better. That's not the proof. The proof has to be in stacking up some wins. And these are eminently winnable games, all of them except the one we don't talk about.
Gene, what would have to happen, though, for them to have any real movement in recruiting? I mean, after all, Miami's improved this year. Florida is consistently pretty good these days. You're not going to out-recruit Clemson even here in the state of Florida right now, and Alabama comes in and takes whatever wide receiver they want out of this state on a regular basis. The surrounding schools in the footprint all seem to have a leg up. Georgia is one of the best teams in recruiting in the country. What kind of impact can Florida State – let's say Florida State doesn't go 3-9, as Corey just said, and you're right, that'd be a disaster. But does 6-6 or 5-7 really mean a significant upgrade in recruiting?
Well, I think it does. You mentioned, first of all, there's a ton of talent in the area, so it's not like even with all that, I hate to say you get the leftovers, can still be pretty good. But if you get the improvement, Florida State still has cachet. I mean, we've seen it's been dog, the last couple years. But, I mean, the bottom line is if they show that improvement in this staff, which is very engaging, you talk to high school coaches when they got to interact with them, they really like them. So you show that improvement, you still might be able to beat Georgia out for a kid. If Georgia's stacked at defensive end, that kid comes in and goes, look, you're probably starting from day one if you're a really good defensive end. And look what we did at the end of the season. He likes the coaching staff. You can beat them for some guys. But as Corey said, you got to have the wins. You got to have something tangible to show those kids, look, we are improving. We're going to be good again. It is Florida State. You got a beautiful campus. You got hot women everywhere. And we're a great football program. We're going to be a great football program again. So come here and be part of it. But you have to have that thing to sell. But I do think it can make a huge difference. Winning, 3 of those games and maybe winning your bowl game, finishing 500, I think will do wonders for this program. At the other side, winning 3 games, it's going to be a really hard sell.
Well, it's up. Hope they start their winning ways this weekend against Pitt. Like you guys have alluded to, I do think this is a game Florida State should win. And especially with the bad news that Pitt got this week, their best defensive player opts out, at least in that secondary. And then obviously they've had the injury at the quarterback position. Even if he plays, he's not going to be fully healthy. Florida State ought to be able to have some success. It's time for weekly picks. Let's get into it. I know the Pac-12 returns this week. We don't really care all that much. But I do care about extra viewing on a random Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, whatever it might be. Miami's at NC State. NC State's getting 10. This is a Friday night game. Let's not forget NC State's season went off a cliff when they had their quarterback break his leg. Bailey Hockman, who's terrible, ended up playing. He was awful, as he always is. They've benched him as well. 10 points, is that too rich for your blood, or do you give NC State the points if you're Miami?
Oh, I give. I think Miami's going to beat them pretty soundly. With that, when you don't have a quarterback, as this fan base knows, you don't have a lot of hope. You just don't have a lot of hope, and it really does infiltrate the whole team. Man, we're not going to win. We don't have a guy that can play quarterback, and so I do think that affects every possession on the football team. And I expect Miami to go in there and win comfortably.
Gene?
Corey, you are massively underrating the Wiz Palace factor.
Okay.
Let's go back to our old man cave days. It's a Friday night. They're going to be getting lubed up all day, building up those bladders all over the place. Miami can't handle that. They're done.
It's still only 25% of the normal pee, though, Gene. It's not 100% of the pee that
That's
we're
a good
normally
point,
used to.
Corey.
It's not. Right. It's not a waterfall of pee, Gene.
Yeah, I forgot about that. It's only
droplets.
All right. So you know what? You convinced me. All right, I forgot about that. Not full capacity in the Wiz Palace. So okay, yeah. I'll take Miami then.
West Virginia. By the way, we're all in agreement there. West Virginia's at Texas. Big 12 teams don't play real football. Texas is given 6.5. I don't think either team's any good. I'll take Texas and give the 6.5 over the Rednecks from West Virginia.
Didn't West Virginia got a big win this past week, didn't they? They beat who was it, Kansas State?
Big win, sure.
Come on, it was a ranked team. They beat a ranked team. I don't trust Texas to beat anyone by more than 1. Maybe they'd win by 6 in overtime, but they don't. I mean, 6.5 is a good number, but I'm going to take West Virginia. I think that All Texas does is play close games that seemingly go into overtime.
Fair enough.
Well, Texas is playing a little better. They had the big win, too. They actually beat a legitimate team this past week in Oklahoma State. So I think they're playing a little bit better. I like the little reverse hook action on this one. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pick Texas to cover on this one.
All right, Tennessee's at Arkansas, a vastly improved Arkansas team. Boys, this is easy money. Take Arkansas. I can't believe they're getting points. This is a nothing game. Arkansas will blow Tennessee out.
Yes.
Mark it down. I'm making the book with my bookie right now as soon as we conclude the show.
What's the spread?
2. Arkansas is getting 2. They're getting points.
No, I'm Tennessee. They know something. That doesn't make sense. It does not make sense that Tennessee's favored. So that tells me that the people that make spreads know something that we don't. It's a weird line. So I'm going with Tennessee. Plus, Arkansas might be living on. I mean, they got waxed this weekend.
That line is there because Tennessee has still the bigger name. I don't think people have caught up with the fact that they freaking sucked this year. They were pretty good at the end of last year, and people are still have that in their minds. Oh, they're SEC, they're Tennessee. No, they're bad. And Arkansas is okay this year. They're decent. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, Jeff. I made to throw a little money your way to throw to your bookie too on that one.
I got it. Corey, you like to fancy yourself a big-time player. Let's go, partner. Let's go. Let's get a little money on the line.
Oh, a little second.
No, I'm not betting on Jeremy Pruitt. I'm not betting on Jeremy Pruitt. What's the matter with you?
Florida Georgia's this weekend?
Yeah.
How in the world did we forget about that? Georgia's favored by 3.5. That's too rich for Corey's blood. He believes Florida's going to win the game. I'll make the pick for Corey. He's taking Florida. I'll take Georgia. I love that Georgia defense. It's unreal how few points they've given up in the second half of games this year. Did you know this stat? Georgia's given up 27 points total in the second half of games this year. 21 of those were against Alabama. Basically, They do not give up points in the second half of games. They can run the football. They're going to have to. But luckily, Florida doesn't stop the run. Give me Georgia to win by more than 3.5. Gene.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I don't know. Can I if Dan Mullen wears the Darth Vader mask on the sideline, I may have to go for Florida then. But, I don't like that little hook on there. But, when in doubt, I'm going to go with the team that has the great defense. And Georgia does, like you said. So it's a tough one for me. I wouldn't bet it in my real life. But, yeah, we'll go with Georgia for the show.
My only counter to that is good quarterback, man. The quarterback play is big a disparity as the defense.
Yeah.
Kyle Trask is much better than Stetson Bennett. And Georgia completed 2 passes in the first half against Kentucky and 6 for the game. You're not beating Florida if you don't trust your quarterback to make plays. You
can run the ball and throw off a play action. You can roll them out. You only need to complete about 12 passes against Florida because you're going to run the ball.
I guess. And the LeCount kid is in the hospital after a bad car accident. He's their best defensive player in the secondary. It troubles me. I'm a pessimist by nature, but the fact that LeCount is hurt and hopefully he's okay, and the quarterback play is so. The disparity is so big. That's what gives me pause at the game.
Well, it's fair. I'm not going to bet it in my real life either. Clemson's at Notre Dame. No Trevor Lawrence. Notre Dame's getting 5.5 in this game. I kind of feel like the upset's in the making here. Give me Notre Dame plus 5.5.
I think Clemson kind of got to wake up. I know Trevor Lawrence, and basically this is a mulligan game for Clemson. They're going to lose. The committee will just say, Trevor Lawrence didn't play because of COVID. Right. We're not going to penalize him. So that makes me a little nervous. Like they can go into this like we really got nothing to lose in this game. But I don't know. I think they got a little bit of they got a scare against Boston College. I think that may wake them up a little bit. They still have, even without the quarterback, they still have the best talent in the country all over the place. Travis Etienne, everybody else. So I'm still going to take Clemson in this one. I think Notre Dame is just a good team. They're not a great team. So I think Clemson wins.
And nobody's playing a violin for Clemson because they have to play DJ Ugalala. I mean, I'm not trying to, but that kid's going to be the next superstar. He's good. He's huge. I think what Gene said about them not having them might feel like it's a mulligan. I think it will help that kid. Like literally, there's almost no pressure on him because there is nothing to lose because the committee won't punish them if they lose. So he doesn't have the weight of a season resting on his shoulders because they'll get to play him again with Trevor Lawrence in a few weeks. So I expect them to go out and play well, and I do expect them to cover. And Venables is awesome. He's just an incredible defensive coach.
Well, I'm obviously making a pick on wishful thinking. And moreover, I'm not betting this in my real life either. Pitt at FSU, Noles favored now. We're taking the Noles, laying the 2.5. It's a runaway, a rocking chair game on Saturday afternoon, early evening. We're all sitting back with a tall, cold one midway through the third quarter watching a Florida State romp. I know you guys feel strongly the same way.
Yeah, kind of do.
Yeah,
Weirdly.
Them apples, everybody.
Now
we're
look, if Pickett was playing quarterback, if we knew that he was going to play and was healthy, I wouldn't touch this game I'm not going to touch it in real life anyway, but I would not be nearly as confident. But that quarterback having no confidence at all and not being very good right now, at least, is what that's the ointment that Florida State needs. The defense to just heal some scabs, maybe. I think I like their chances.
We're all taking the Noles. Mark it down, folks. It may be one of the few times
the only time probably,
at all. For Gene Williams and Corey Clark. Also, thank you, Aslan, as always, and to all of you. Another reminder before we sign off, I say thank you to those gentlemen, but thank you to you as well. And tune in for the pregame show on Warchant TV on YouTube this Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Myself, Tom Wang, will help get you prepared for the game that afternoon. And then after the game, stay tuned to Warchant TV on YouTube as well. And Gene Williams and Tom Wang will join you and take your calls, talk about Florida State and Pitt. Have a great week, everybody. Be well, and we'll talk to you next time on the Warchant.com report.